Hi, guys. Mrs. Ball here. I have a special guest reader. I bet you can't figure out who it is.
It's me.
Yeah, it's him. Okay,
Because we're stuck home alone.
Yeah. No, we're together alone.
Well, together and alone.
So,
Without you.
right, without you. So, Mr. Ball is going to read chapter 5. It's just a shorty, and then he's going to sneak off, and I'm going to give you a writing assignment. So, you don't need your pencil and paper just yet. You'll need it after the lesson. So, here he goes.
Chapter 5. The Girl Across the Street. Greg Kenton has always lived on Maple Avenue. As a very young boy, Greg had sometimes noticed the girl across the street who helped her dad rake leaves, and sometimes he had seen her riding a tricycle, round and around on her driveway. She looked like she was about his age, but she didn't go to his nursery school or Sunday school, so Greg didn't know who she was, and he didn't care. Greg's world was small back then, and that little blonde girl wasn't part of it. Greg noticed the girl the way he noticed the neighborhood dogs, or the colors of the flowers growing next to the front walk, or the blinking yellow light at the corner. Even when they both started kindergarten at the same school, Greg went in the morning and the girl went in the afternoons. It was like they lived on different continents. The concrete ocean between them was only 35 feet wide, but young children never crossed it alone. For his 5th birthday, Greg got a big wheel, all blue and red and yellow with fat black tires. The hard plastic wheels made a huge rumbling sound, as loud as the trucks on Maple Avenue. The first day he had it, Greg rode his big wheel for at least 2 hours. Over and over he rocketed down the driveway, yanked the handlebars to the right, and then roared along the sidewalk. His curly hair swept from his high forehead, and when he noticed the girl across the street sitting in her front steps watching him, Greg poured on an extra burst of speed, while he smiled and waved as he went grinding by. The girl waved back, but she didn't smile. Then late one afternoon, about a week later, the little girl wasn't sitting on her steps when Greg went outside to ride. She was thundering around and around her driveway on a big wheel of her own, except hers was pink and green and white, and when Greg went speeding out of his driveway and zipped along the sidewalk, she did the same thing, a mirror image. And when Greg stopped at the corner of 10th Street and headed back toward his driveway, so did the girl across the street. When he sped up, so did she. When he jammed his feet to the ground and slammed to a stop, she did too. Greg was annoyed, but then he pretended to ignore her. He turned and slowly pedaled up toward the corner on 10th Street again. He didn't look, but he could tell by the sounds that the girl was doing the same thing over on her own sidewalk. Greg turned his big wheel around and put his feet on the pedals. Then he looked across the street. The girl had turned her big wheel around too, and she looked back at him smiling. And when Greg nodded, they both took off. In seconds, Greg was zooming along at top speed, legs pumping, hands tight around the plastic grips. The sidewalk sloped slightly downhill as he neared his house. Greg started to ease up, but he had never gone down the block past his driveway before. But he glanced over and he could see the girl wasn't slowing down. So Greg kept going, flying toward the corner where the tall blue mailbox stood. In the places where tree roots had lifted the sidewalk, Greg bounced off his seat. Barely able to keep control. At this speed, if he tried to turn the corner at 9th Street, he'd flip over for sure. So at the last possible second, Greg dug his sneakers into the sidewalk and skidded to a full stop, his front wheel inches from the curb. Looking quickly to the other side of Maple Avenue, Greg saw that the girl was stopped too, and also at the edge of the curb and still smiling. Greg shouted across the street, "It's a tie!" The girl shook her head and shouted back, "Almost a tie." Greg frowned. "Want to race again? Maybe tomorrow." "Because you're scared," Greg shouted. The girl didn't answer him. She just kept smiling, turned her big wheel around, and started pedaling slowly up the street toward her driveway. That was the first of many big wheel races, with each of them ending as a tie, or almost a tie. And soon Greg had learned the name of the girl across the street, Maura Shaw.
Good job. That was good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Okay, so kind of sounds like the way Mr. Ball rides his bike sometimes. Fast, yeah. I mean, he always has to win, always has to beat me. So, all right, I want you now, you can hit pause if you need to and go grab a pencil, paper, your spiral, whatever you were working on. And we're going to do a writing assignment. So I'll wait for you to come back. Okay. So you're going to write a story where there's a problem that needs to be solved. So this can be something that has literally happened to you in your life, or it can be something that you make up. So you're going to have your first paragraph is going to be your opening, kind of setting the stage. Now you wouldn't have a topic sentence because it's a narrative, and a narrative is a made-up story. It can be based on real events, but you're making up the characters and the events that happen. Don't use anybody's name in our classes because you know that causes trouble. So you're going to write one, two, three, about 4 paragraphs, 4 to 5, depending on how much detail you want to give. And I hope you choose to give a lot of details to make it super interesting. I'm looking down here at my book to make sure I don't forget what I want to say. I want you to use information from your own experiences that you would have into your story. I want you to establish a situation by describing the characters and the setting and introducing a problem. So you could start it off with your problem. One day, my friend and I were having trouble with a group we had created because 25 kids wanted to be in our group and we only had enough room for 5. And so we had to figure out how to not make kids feel left out. It could be something like that. It could be a problem you're having at home with a sibling, maybe fighting over something, arguing over something. It could be something that's kind of made up if you'd like to. We want you to use order adjectives within your sentence when you do the sequence. Big, bigger, biggest, those types of adjectives. First, this happened. Don't forget your transition words. Next. Let me scooch onto this page and see what this one says. Make sure that you describe your characters in detail so we feel like we know them. Use those really good words that we've been working on all year. You want one main character so that it doesn't get too tricky and you're going back and forth by too many things, because that gets to be a little bit more involved and then you forget the main details. So kind of keep it simple, but give me lots of good descriptions. If you want to draw a picture in there, you can. If you want to type it on your Google, you're more than welcome. Google share it with me, kimberly.ball@lposd.org. You're more than welcome to do that. You can save it, bring it in to class when we meet again. But that's your writing assignment. So I hope you don't have any questions because I sort of can't answer them on here. But you're writing a story that there's a problem that needs to be solved. And at the end, solve it. Give me a conclusion. Okay, a good conclusion. Show me how it ends. Maybe it ends well, maybe it doesn't. I like happy endings, but however you want to end it. And that's your lesson for today. And I'll come back to you with the next lesson. Love ya. Bye.